Good afternoon, everyone. I am excited to be here. We are going to be joined live today by the Happy Heretic, also known as Hannah, and she is dynamite. I've had the opportunity to talk with her on the phone before meeting up today, and it is an exciting conversation and one that I cannot wait for us all to have together. We are going to talk all things deconstruction and what that looks like for her and her life. And I am excited to let you hear her story and what and where she's at now. So with that, she should be joining us very shortly. And I am looking forward to it. There she is. Hello, Hannah.
Hello, hi. How
I'm
are you?
good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, long day at work, but I've got my Diet Coke and I've got my blanket and I'm ready to
You're
go.
ready to go. Oh,
Yep.
because you are what, 5 hours ahead of us, I think it is, on the East Coast here.
Yeah, it's 8 p.m. here in sunny England.
Oh, is it sunny?
It was today, yeah, for
Good.
once.
That's good. I hear the weather's quite crazy there. So,
Yeah, well, I think crazy is an extreme word. It's just a
oh,
bit
okay.
hormonal.
Hormone. We'll go with hormone. I've never heard the weather described as hormonal, so I'm going to use that from now on. That's really cool.
Yeah, I
Really
feel I
cool.
feel like weather in the States is crazy. Weather here is just a bit, unsettled.
Then we'll call the weather here crazy. That's great. So why don't we? I'm telling everybody that I'm happy to have you on, and I would love for you to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Hannah, as you now all know, because I recently revealed my true identity. I'm no longer just Batman. Um, and I'm 34. I live in England with my cat, Dr. Beverly Crusher, so named for Dr. Beverly Crusher from Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan.
I
She's not
love
with
her.
me right now.
That's awesome.
She's on holiday right now because I'm
Mm.
moving house on Friday, so she is staying with a friend of mine until I move. Um, so it's a little quiet in here without her yowling at me. Um, but yeah, I live in the southeast of England on the coast pretty much. So I'm right by the sea. I can see France from our seafront, so we're pretty close to the continent. Um, and for a job, I support people into work who have health issues or other barriers like criminal convictions or whatever else that might be stopping getting into work. So that's what I do in my day job, and in my evenings, I like to annoy people on the internet, and that's what I do.
Well, we like the fact you annoy us on the internet. Then it's awesome. It's awesome. I'll introduce myself. I'm Brad. For those that do not know me, I'm a life coach, a former pastor who has seen the light
Hmm.
and left that behind. And so it is good to be here with you, Hannah, and I'm looking forward to getting started. Hello, Divine Misfits. Thank you for saying hello.
Hi.
Good to see you as well. But with that being said, let's just jump right into it. How about that?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. All right. For people that don't know your story, tell us a little bit your foundation in religion and how you began to deconstruct that religion.
Okay, so I didn't actually have a foundation in religion because I was raised atheist. Many of us in England and many of us in Europe, actually in general, tend not to be raised religious. It's not actually normal. I say normal. It's not traditional anymore for people to be raised religious. I appreciate
Yep.
it's quite standard in most parts of the States,
Mm-hmm.
but here it's way more standard, particularly in England. It's way more standard to be atheist. Um, so that's how I was raised, and I came to church quite late in life. I say late in life. I was in my early 20s, um, which is unusual. People don't usually convert. So yeah, so that's what I did. That's how I joined the church. I met a guy who was um, very keen on Jesus, and he made it clear to me in no uncertain terms that if I didn't at least open my mind up to the possibility of Christianity, we couldn't be together. So that was my perhaps misguided reason for getting into religion to begin with. Oh, but this boy is pretty and I like him, so maybe I should go to church. So that's how that started. And once I got there, I realized I liked the kind of community, and I put that in inverted commas, the sense of community and that sense of belonging and, unconditional love, also in commas. And yeah, and that's kind of how I got there. In terms of deconstruction, that was 10 years later. I was in the church for 10 years after I got married. We moved around from different churches with slightly different sort of belief structures and teachings and things like that, but relatively all kind of evangelical on some level. And after 10 years, my marriage fell apart for various reasons. And when I left the church is when I properly started deconstructing. And I left the church as a direct result of leaving my husband because, quite frankly, I wasn't welcome. And that's the shortest way I'm going to tell that story.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I just to let you know, here in the States, and I'm going to make a broad kind of, I don't know, I'm just going to broadly say this is a lot of the students go to youth group or have gone to youth group so they can meet the opposite sex.
Mm-hmm.
They stick around depending upon who's there. A large
Lovely.
portion. So I know, right? It's kind of like in high school or the collegiate ministry is what they'll call it, the 20s. It's like a dating circle.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many churches I've been in to where if you're in your 20s and you're single, it's like, okay, let's see all the other single people and see if there's somebody there for us, mingle, so it's,
Yeah.
so I totally get that. And of course, sorry to hear about the marriage situation as well. But from what I gather, you have pretty well healed from that and moved on.
Yeah.
From I've been able to surmise as well. When you joined the church, okay, because you're right, it is odd going from atheism to the church.
Mm-hmm.
You said kind of community, but what was missing in your life for you to take that jump?
I think, that sense of community was really strong actually, because, I won't speak for Europe, in England, particularly in your late teens, early 20s, if you are not raised in faith, which as I pointed out, many of us are not, the only thing for you to do really is to go to pubs. And that's the only place to socialize, because you're not socializing in churches or youth groups or anything like that. You're just going out and meeting people. So my social life revolved around drinking, and around quite shallow sort of circles. And I had good friends and things, but by the time I'd met my ex-husband and joined the church, I was feeling quite beaten up by that community. I hadn't really got solid friends, and I kept getting dumped by guys, and I was just fed up, and I really just didn't want to be alone anymore. And the church was like, "Oh, come in, we have tea and biscuits." And I thought, "Oh, that's nice. These people actually want my company."
The love language of food.
Yes. Coming out from the cold, we have tea and biscuits and really bad organ playing. That's what got me in.
Yeah, for us it's pizza. Come on in, we have pizza.
Yeah.
The drinking.
Oh, we don't do that. Yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah. No.
Tea and biscuits, or cake if it's a really posh church. You might get cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. That's good. Us gluttonous Americans, we go for the big stuff, right? So yeah, the non-healthy stuff. I noticed the Informal Mystic has said not to mention singles ministry, not ministry really, trying to find your God-ordained match.
That's gross.
That's true. It's like God has chosen somebody for you. And that's the way we look at it here, or religion a lot of times is looked at it like that. So past girlfriends say I've had a quiet time and God told me we're supposed to get married. And so it's that kind of mentality, which now obviously she's living in sin because we never got married. So,
Well,
guess we both missed our opportunity. But that's that, right?
yeah.
So you like the community, you like the tea and biscuits. You didn't like the organ playing, because I don't really ever hear anybody say I joined church because of the music. What happened in your friend circle Like, because
Mm.
honestly, I hear you had some solid friendships before, you joined church. What happened throughout that process? And you're deconstructing, or you're joining the church and deconstructing afterwards.
Okay, well, first of all, I'll just answer that question there. Informal Mystic, does England not have singles ministry? To my knowledge, no. Some churches might do, but in my experience, no. They do that thing, as you were saying, Brad, where you get people that are single who are in their 20s and you try and like force them together. I watched that happen at a couple of churches, which was unpleasant. But no, as far as I'm aware, there are not any ministries. Can you remind me of what your question was now? Because I've managed to forget.
Friend circle.
Friend circle. Yeah. Okay, so my non-church friend circle, because I only had one friend before I joined church who was a Christian. We're still friends now because she's a really cool person. But the rest of my friends were pretty much all atheists, or they were sort of spiritual fence sitters, like a lot of people tend to be over here. We're kind of like a bit pick and choose, like pick and mix from all different kinds of faiths and just find something that we like. We don't tend to be too religious about our faiths over here. But I was described as a God-bothering killjoy, a Bible basher. I was called self-righteous on more than one occasion, and they may have been right, to be fair. And yeah, in general, I was not. I wasn't pushed out. Certainly, I think they would have allowed me to be around. A couple of people did break contact with me completely. One of my oldest friends actually walked out of my wedding partway through, which was really upsetting. Another one who was my bridesmaid left shortly after the ceremony. So yeah, there were a few moments that were a bit hairy.
Yeah.
And some of those people I've reconnected with, and it's been really beautiful. But yeah, at that point, some people just could not stay friends with me because our opinions on things were so disparate. They just couldn't find any common ground with me anymore, and they just decided it wasn't for them. So it did get pretty unpleasant. The rest of the friends just seemed to be quite happy to hover in the background and get on with their own lives and see me as and when I was around. But we kind of lost touch, and church is all consuming, as you know, and I kind of got swallowed into the abyss, and I just sort of disappeared. And people just assumed that I was happy and married, because married people tend to disappear too, because they just go into their marriages and do their thing, and that's what they thought I was doing. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, I think, in terms of responses.
Okay. And while you were in the church, what was the area that you kind of volunteered in?
Worship. I was in the music team.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Did you play an instrument? Your backup vocals, main vocals? What were you?
It was different in each church. So the first church I started as vocals. I was backing vocals, and then I also did guitar and piano, which I hated. I can play both, and I hate playing them for people. So I did not enjoy that. Second church, I actually led worship. It was a very small church, and not immediately, but after a while, I led worship on my own. You literally didn't need more than one person doing it because it was a tiny little community center about as big as my living room. So it was me and my guitar, which again I hated. Last church, I was a backing singer with another backing singer and a lead singer and a full band with a full PA system and lights, and all we were missing was the smoke machine.
That was really nice.
It was ridiculous. I think even they were like, that's too far. In a big like warehouse type church, that's quite common here, on our industrial estates, like, where there's builders, merchants, all that kind of stuff. Big empty warehouses tend to get bought by churches and turned into churches. So they're in weird locations, but they're huge, cavernous industrial buildings, which are really cold and echoey, and they fill them with lights and smoke machines and PA systems. So yeah, that was the last one. And I did, in the first church, I also volunteered for children and youth work. But I didn't do that in the last one.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I learned from mistake at least. I didn't do that again.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've had experience with organ music as well as then worship band type music as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. And I want to call out Brian and Spinoli. Say hello. Hi.
Spinelli's actually a friend of mine from the real world. So hello.
Spinoli?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. I'm glad I got that correct. So she's Informal Mystic's interested in why you switched churches 3 times. So that's a good question. What is it that made you progress to different churches?
Okay, so the first church that I joined was the one that my ex-husband was going to. His whole family went there. He has quite a few siblings and his parents, and they all went to the same church, and they have been going there for years. He was really well established there, so that's where we started going. It's where we got married. We were there for 3 or 4 years. We left for a few reasons. One of the catalysts for me personally was that they refused to baptize me because I had been christened as an infant by atheist parents. And I said, I want to make a proclamation of faith. I want to be baptized in the next service. And the vicar said, no, because it's one for the forgiveness of sins and you've already had it. And I was like, that's bollocks. So I told him it was bollocks. We had an argument about it. I then had another argument about infant baptism, got myself in all kinds of problems. Yeah. Then there was also a family incident, which I don't need to go into, but there was an incident with one of the members of my ex-husband's family. So they were unhappy as well. So they started leaving, and we chose to just move on. We moved on to a free church who offered to baptize me in their service, and they were doing it in the sea, because at the time that church was being run by a couple of hippies who I'm still friends with, and they like to dunk people in the freezing cold English Channel, by the way, American friends. It's not like some warm tropical Pacific waters. This is like freezing cold. You can feel it in your internal organs cold.
You look like you had the Holy Spirit when you're coming up out of the water, basically, right?
It's awful. You have people there on standby with like several towels and hot cups of tea because it was freezing. Yeah. And we were there for a few years. You know, I was doing worship and everything else. We left that one because the lovely hippie leaders, they left. They were actually forced out because they held some, outrageous views on how people should be treated like human beings. So they left, and people were not being treated like human beings. So kind of a collaborative team of elders took over the church, which, as you can imagine, is a recipe for disaster. Classic too many cooks situation.
All you had to say, collaborate group of elders. I mean, that's good out of me.
Yeah, and they were elders. This is a team of like 60-plus-year-old people who have been in churches for a long time. They all have their own idea of how it should be. They were all in couples. It was a nightmare. And they told an unmarried couple who had been together, and unmarried and Christians for 30-plus years, they told them they couldn't share a room on the church weekend away because it sent a wrong message to the youth. So I was like, and I left.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But the thing is, what I like is that in hindsight, I can see that even though I did get swallowed by that abyss and I did kind of really fall into the kind of culty mindset, there were still those moments where I went, no, that's not okay, I'm off. So,
wow.
And and the last one I left because me and my husband split up, and the church were dicks about it, so I left.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Obviously. So, did this have any impact on your extended family at all, or what's the background there? Atheist.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
How they took everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird ride for my family because, again, atheist family, my mum had sort of traditional, and so did my stepdad, some traditional kind of church stuff. But even when they were kids, it wasn't faith stuff. It was just religious stuff. They weren't doing it because they had a personal relationship with Jesus. There was none of that kind of stuff. It was just done because it's what you did. So they went to church for Easter and Christmas, and there were some things like schools tend to be more openly religious when my parents were kids. There was that kind of impact. But you then get all the cults and stuff in the 70s and 60s who were like abducting children and whatever. So that's what my parents think of when they think of church. My mum actually, my mum told me when I first started going to church, she told me that it would have been easier if I told her I was gay than tell her that I was a Christian.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's there.
Yeah. I mean, joke's on her because I'm bisexual, but she doesn't know that. So.
You were both.
But when I left, they were really good. They were really respectful. They didn't just go straight in and go, "I told you so," or anything like that. they were actually, my sister in particular was fantastic. She was really sad for me because she knew how important that had been to me and how much it was a huge part of my life, and all my friends were there. I was really ingrained in it. She knew how much I loved volunteering, and, you know, my outlet for singing and things. So I see Brian's got a question about that, which I'll answer in a minute. Yeah, she was really, really sad for me, and she checked in with me a lot to make sure I was okay, because I had just lost, you know, 100 friends overnight. And it was very isolating, and I was living in my mum's, you know, spare bedroom at the age of 33 and feeling a bit sorry for myself. So yeah, it was, but they were very good. And I don't have any extended family who are religious. I think one or two of my grandparents may have been, but they all passed away years ago. So there's nobody who would have been uncomfortable with me being an atheist again.
Right.
So that was easy peasy, to be honest.
That's good. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Brian has a question.
Yes.
Yep. Would you like to answer that question?
Yeah. So Brian's question: when you broke away, did your musical life suffer? Initially, it did, because everything about what I did musically was tied to church. I didn't do anything musically before that. I was in some kids' choirs and stuff when I was younger. I used to take part in musical events at schools, and I would sign up for plays and things like that. But once I left school, I had no musical outlet at all. So I just didn't do it. I wasn't brave enough to audition to be in bands or anything, so I just didn't. Church gave me that opportunity to do that, and also to give me the, you know, the outlet to not perform. We all know that we're performing, okay? Fellow worship leaders will know we are definitely performing. I know, shock horror. But, you know, but we're not really. We're doing it for the Lord, so it's okay. Oh gosh. But yeah, so when I left church, that was actually really hard. I really missed it. I also really missed communal singing, actually, you know, on a serious note. I really did miss, because you don't do that in any other situation, really, apart from if you're a sports fan, which I'm not. Like football and rugby, you know, they sing chants and stuff. That's the closest thing you're going to get to it, really. So I really miss that communal singing. But I did start singing for myself shortly after. And I got a singing app. The one I use is called Smule. It's a glorified karaoke app, but you can sing with other people. So you can do duets and group songs and stuff. And I started doing that, and I gained a bit of a following in there, and I started getting invited to groups and stuff, and it became exactly what I was missing, just remote. And in lockdown, it was an absolute lifesaver. And it really was a huge sort of support groundwork for my mental health and my recovery with that. I was having a lot of counselling and stuff, and, you know, I'd moved in here by myself, which was a huge culture shock. I'd never lived alone until now. So it was very lonely. And yeah, singing, I was singing every day. And I did something like 1,500 recordings in a few months.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite intense. So yeah, musical life did suffer for a while, but not anymore. What is Spin asking? Friends don't let friends rejoin cults. Thanks, Spin.
That was really funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. He's one of my wonderful friends from my old life that I actually kind of wasn't really allowed to speak to, which I won't go into. But yeah, he's someone that was waiting there, happy for me to come back and welcome me with open arms, with all the love that he had for me before, no judgment, was just sad that things had gone wrong for me, and was happy to have me back.
You know, I was going to ask you, that was my next question, a follow-up question. I know you and I talked about this briefly, but when you left the church, how did your friends receive you back? Like, what did that look like for you?
Again, I was surprised. I thought there'd be a lot more kind of "I told you so" behavior, but no one did that. First and foremost, everyone was really sad that my marriage had ended, and that, you know, I was going through a horrible thing during lockdown because none of them could help me. I was just out here on my own. I'm about a 20-minute drive from my hometown, and everyone that lives in this town goes to that bloody church. So I've got no friends here. That's the reason I moved here with my ex-husband, was to be at that church. So once I'd moved out, you know, it was a trial separation at first, so I moved within the same town just in case, and then so now I was just stuck here in lockdown by myself, no friends. But they were all really sad that I was going through a horrible thing. A lot of them thought that I was very happily married, because that's the impression I gave to the world via social media, as many of us do. Sure. Yeah, they were very, very supportive. I had a couple of friends in particular who kept in touch very regularly. We started using voice messages on WhatsApp because it was more personal. So I had lots of back and forth conversations with lots of different people. And I divulged whatever I wanted to divulge, which was nice. For the first time I had privacy. I was able to choose how much information I shared, which you can't do when you're in a church environment because they make you talk about it in prayer circles and make you have accountability partners and all kinds of nonsense. Yeah. So they were lovely. They were really sweet. They're very understanding. A lot of them were really interested to hear about my experience because they said I had a unique perspective because I'd gone atheist to Christian to atheist again. They were very keen to hear how I'd done that. And that's actually where this account ended up sort of coming from. And I told a very select few people about the account when I first started it, when it was called the Evangelical. And it was completely anonymous at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and I told a handful of people, and they started following me. So when people were asking me about my situation with church, I'm like, hey, you know what? If you want to see my rants about this shit, you can come on this secret Instagram account. Just don't tell anyone. So I started getting these little followers from my real life. But yeah, they were actually all super interested, and I think actually it opened a door for them to talk about something that had been quite uncomfortable for them for the last 10 years because they hadn't wanted to offend me before. Whereas now it's like they've got a free pass; they can ask me anything they want. So,
right.
I've had a lot of really interesting conversations as a result of it, actually.
Okay, so you spent a large portion of deconstructing in quarantine.
Yeah.
Right. What advice would you give someone going through the deconstruction process?
Get therapy. That is 100% best advice I could give. Obviously, my circumstances were quite specific. I was going through a divorce. I was struggling with some sort of abuse issues and stuff too. So counselling was really fundamental. It was counselling that helped me step out of my marriage in the first place. She was recommended by the church, this counsellor, and she said to me, I think I told you before, she said to me a few months ago that she will no longer be getting any business from that church as a result of how she's counselled me, which is hilarious. She doesn't care. But yeah, I had really, really good counselling. And it wasn't like, it wasn't prescriptive either. So I had counselling as and when I wanted it. So I had, initially I was having it a lot. I had sort of 3 or 4 sessions a week. I think I had a couple of days where I had 2 sessions in one day. She was on kind of not quite 24-hour, but she was on sort of out of hour support mode too. So I could WhatsApp her whenever I wanted to, which was great in the first few weeks when I was really struggling. And then it just kind of, gradually just eased off by itself. And I get in touch with her now if I have a kind of mini crisis, or if I just need a bit of kind of third-party guidance that isn't biased, not from my friends, someone who I'm paying, so I know they have to be honest with me.
No, that's great. That's
yeah.
great. I mean, I see a therapist every other week, and it's somebody that's neutral, somebody that now she has no religion. She's an atheist,
right?
But she brings that outside perspective to kind of keep you grounded.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll ask her questions, stuff like that. And she follows me actually on Instagram here.
Oh, that's fun.
As well. And so I really treasure her advice because it helps me look outside myself.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. Especially where I was in lockdown and I was completely alone, having someone to take me out of my own head is really important. That's something I particularly struggle with as part of my sort of anxiety issues. I really struggle with rumination and obsessing. So I tend to sit for hours and hours and hours and hours with the same thought. And that's when I tend to message her and be like, I need help because I can't stop thinking about this one thing. And it could be one tiny thing. It could be one phrase that one person said to me a week ago and I can't stop thinking about it.
Sure.
That's better now because she's given me the tools to deal with that kind of thing. I'm now better able to be more mindful and, take deep breaths and all the good stuff you're meant to do. But it's good to have somebody on side, well, not even on side because that would be biased, but to have someone that you pay to be neutral, to give you professional, trained advice from a neutral standpoint is absolutely crucial because deconstruction is a pardon the phrase, is a ball ache, to use a very English phrase.
I love it. Yeah.
It is though. It's hard. It's hard work, and if you're doing it by yourself, it's exhausting. And there's lots of great resources out there, but you don't know that at the beginning. and you're just there kind of like treading water, not really knowing where you're supposed to go, and having someone to help you out of that a little is absolutely fundamental. Other than that, I would just say like dive into the deconstruction social medias, because there's loads of them. I haven't quite investigated on Facebook because I'm not a big fan, but Twitter and Instagram are full of people like us talking about this from all kinds of different angles, doing lives like this. It's all super helpful. And I think it's this kind of stuff that started grounding me into the like, oh, actually, it's okay to be like this. Because for the first few months of deconstruction, you're just battling with this idea that you are failing and that you're sinning and that you're bad, because you've spent however many years, in some cases your entire life, believing that God is there watching you and judging you constantly, to then suddenly go, I don't think I believe that anymore. Oh my God, I'm going to go to hell. And then have that constantly. It's a lot. Ooh, not a fan of that. I wouldn't want to go back to that process.
I agree. There's a lot of social media people like, when you're talking about that, I think of Blair, Informal Mystic, that on her webpage, she has a meditation she gives away for free. That helps you kind of refocus on what is positive. And so there's all kinds of stuff out there. I mean, I have an anxiety worksheet that people get on my website, for free. I mean, there's people out there going, hey, we've all been deconstructing, and this is what has helped us.
Yeah.
And it's really neat because it is a community in and of itself.
Yeah.
Down to. So I think that's really cool. Okay. So that being said, what are, like, going through deconstruction, a lot of people think it's a lot of misery.
They're not wrong.
And there is a lot, but what are some positive that you pulled out of the deconstruction process for you personally?
There are so many things. Honestly, I feel like the bad bit comparatively is so small. I feel like that bad bit is a really short period. Like, you still get those little occasional moments of like, oh, I'm going to go to hell. And I still get those sometimes. Oh no, what if I'm wrong? But that's going to happen, isn't it? You can't help it. And again, if people have been like that, if they've been raised like that from birth, that kind of habit probably isn't going to go away overnight, is it? But I really think that initial first really wrenching, painful bit really isn't that long. For you, like, personally, obviously you're still going to deal with friendship losses and stuff over time. I feel like that actually took a bit longer for me than I expected it would. I'm still friends with a couple of people from my old church. And I know that people are lurking on this Instagram. Hello. People are following me on this, but not following me. They're hiding and looking at my content. So it's taking a while to pull myself away completely. But that nasty bit I think is short. And I think that's what I want people to take away from this. If anything, please don't feel like you're going to be stuck in this miserable hole forever, because you really won't. I feel like the majority of my deconstruction has been so much fun, because there's so much to learn. And there are so many different ways of looking at faith and religion and theology and whatever you want to look at. I mean, I started the journey by actually trying to find different sects of Christianity that I could join instead of the one that I was in. I was looking for something that was less religious, essentially. I was looking for something that didn't look at the Bible like it was literal, or look at God as this almighty judge. I was trying to find the unconditional love that was supposedly promised that I didn't see. And I looked at liberation theology and things like that, and that's the kind of angle I was going down. But eventually I just, you pull one string and then they all come undone. And that's kind of how mine went. But some people end up, still with faith or a slightly different faith or whatever. But all I know is that it's been so much fun watching other people's experiences and learning from other people and seeing what they're going through and reading their advice. Particularly for the LGBTQ community, because I only realised that I wasn't straight about 8 months ago. My ex-boyfriend actually pointed out to me that I wasn't straight, which was hilarious. I said something and he went, babe, that's a bit gay. And I was like, that's a bit gay. That is a bit gay. But those moments are so good. And that's one of my favourite memories of this whole process, is him going, that's a bit gay. And me going, oh my God, I'm not straight. And just all those little bits of self-discovery are so much fun, because in churches, you have to die to self and sacrifice, and it's all doom and gloom, and you can't have any fun. You can't just be yourself. You have to be, the best version of you or some shit. I don't know. I never liked any of that. I always felt like I was failing with that model.
Yes. Did you do So,
that whole model was just depressing. I never fit the mold, and I was always disappointing people.
um, Moon and Rune Wellness, who one of my favorite people, asked a couple questions here. Said,
Okay.
"Do you still feel a connection with spirituality? And have you had experience with has the experience with dogmatic religion caused you full severing from spiritual for you?"
First of all, what a beautifully worded question.
I know, isn't she amazing like that?
Wow. If I'm not already following you, I'm going to.
Awesome.
So, do I feel a connection with spirituality? Honestly, no, not really. Again, because I was atheist before, I feel like I've kind of just reverted to factory settings, as my ex-husband used to call it. Um, but yes, factory settings for me is atheist, and actually, I'm comfortable like that. I would say, though, that although I don't have any particular spiritual beliefs now, I don't feel like they're completely off the table. I feel like I'm a lot more open-minded now, like I'm willing to listen to other people's ideas instead of just going, la 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 la, Jesus saves. Um, and prior to that, I'd go la 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 la, it's all nonsense because I was like a really diehard atheist. Whereas now I'm just like, meh, I'm an atheist, but meh. I'll listen to ideas and I'll consider it, but I now need fact-based evidence now for anything. Don't come to me with 5,000-year-old books that were written 300 years after people died, and I'm not interested in any of that. If you've got some things you want to show me, I'll look at them.
How you really feel, because I just don't know.
Am I being a bit cagey? Should I be more honest?
I don't think you're really getting your point across. Oh, that's awesome. Brian, yes, ego breeding ground. Of course, yes. So, Moon and Rune Wellness obviously said, seems like you saved you this time around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that raises an important point about being able to be yourself, like I was saying earlier, because the church really drums that out of you and tells you that you have to be, God's perfect image of you, who God destined you to be, and blah blah blah. So you always feel like you're failing, you always feel like you're not good enough, and you don't really know who that person is that you're supposed to be because you're apparently forever growing and changing and blah blah blah. But actually, like, if you just be you and do you things, you can sort yourself out. Actually, you don't need, if you believe in God, fine, but you don't need God to tell you what to do, to ordain your very steps on every single day. You can just get out of bed and go do stuff. And see what happens. And it's okay to do things that make you happy, and it's okay to not do things that don't make you happy. And I feel like that's so simple and obvious, but many of us, me included, for years at church, like, well, even though I don't want to do this, the Bible tells me I should, so I'm going to. Like forcing myself to do quiet time and Bible study, which I hated. Unless I was doing it for academic reasons, because I loved that. If I had to do it for spiritual reasons, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. So, now I get to just go up and do whatever I want.
Yeah, the pressure's off with that, right? I mean, there was an enormous amount of pressure with that. And being a pastor, I mean, I had to be a certain way.
I can't even imagine.
I try to forget it. So, that being the case, what are some of your future goals?
That's a big question.
I
mean, in the immediate future, moving house without having a nervous breakdown. That's the immediate future plan. I move house on Friday. So,
well, thank you
cutting
for
it close.
Talk today.
It's a nice break. It's an excuse to not pack for an hour. In terms of like big grand plans, I don't really have any, and that's kind of nice actually. I'm no longer tethered to an unhealthy marriage. I'm no longer tethered to a church. It's just me and the cat. So I do what I like. I mean, career-wise, I know for sure now that I love helping people. I absolutely love helping people. It also satisfies a lot of my codependent urges that if I use in my own life are bad and negative and controlling. If I use them in work, they help people. So that's why I like to do what I do. So I'm considering either doing more of what I'm currently doing, that kind of charity work angle, or possibly becoming a probation officer, or maybe training to be a counsellor. All kind of helpy people based areas of work. Those are my sort of vague plans. But for me personally, I don't know. I don't really have any plans.
To have the freedom to not know, I
It's nice.
think it's pretty awesome when it comes right. So, you know, listen, I admire the journey you've come on, or how you've come out of it. I guess I should say, the strength that you showed in coming through what you came through.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you are confident with who you are. You know, I think volumes, and so I think what you've chosen, with the direction you've chosen, and what you're doing is perfect. I'm glad you get to move back to your hometown.
Yeah.
Glad you get to do that. So
I'm excited about that. And you know, the parting words from my ex-mother-in-law, I just had those resonating in my head when you said something about me being who I am. It's okay. It's good.
okay.
I don't think she meant it as good, but I'm taking it as good. I sent her a message to say, you know, that I loved them all and I was sorry it had ended badly, but I just wanted them to know that they were all nice people and blah, blah, blah. And she had replied and said some similar nice kind of, you know, things, some platitudes and stuff. And then she said, I wish you all the best with your chosen path, which was obviously meant to be a bit like passive aggressive and bitter. But I'm like, actually, me and my chosen path, not the one that's being dictated to me, mine.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you. I'm glad you're happy for me. Good news.
You might have meant that as a dig, but I take it as a compliment.
I choose to take that as a compliment because I can.
Exactly. Well, let me ask this. Where can people find you, connect with you? You know, tell us a little bit about how they can get a hold of you.
Okay, well, my main realm of existence is Instagram. So find me here. I'm on Twitter as well, sort of. I don't really use it very much. I tend to just sort of stalk people and retweet things. I don't actually tweet my own content there very much. And I am working on a website, but it's not ready yet because I was meant to launch it on my birthday at the end of August, and then I learned I was moving house. So I just haven't. It was so close to being finished as well, and I was going to launch it on my birthday and make it this big thing, and it doesn't matter. It's, you know, it's not church. It doesn't matter if I fail.
Right.
So yeah.
Forward to you having your website come out.
Yeah, and when that's up, I hope to also maybe do YouTube videos. I'm unsure about that. I don't know if I can be interesting enough to do YouTube videos. We'll see.
I think you'd be awesome at it.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and you've given me great ideas for things like, you know, anxiety sheets and, like, you know, other kinds of help that I could share that I will also put on my website. There'll be a kind of blog section where I'll put some stuff like that, which might be cool. But again, no real plan. We'll just see what happens once I launch it.
That would be great. That would be great. And I can't wait for you to launch that whenever you want to launch that.
Whenever I choose, whenever I damn well please.
Oh, that's awesome. So with that, we have kept it between, well, almost 45 minutes. Just with you and I about that.
Check that out.
If you want to connect with me as well, you can go to my page, DM me. I'm always active and talking, much like Hannah is. And we go to my webpage as well. I love helping people out with deconstructing. But, you know, I heal personally every time I hear someone else's story. I mean, hearing how someone else has come through it, whether they've stuck with some faith or gone a different area with spirituality or just burnt it all down. There is healing. And I find that the people I get to interview, the more people I get to interview, the more people I get to talk with, it's awesome because they seem, because they've come out of such a very judgmental area, they realize that's not the way to do life. And so they're not judgmental with where you are.
Yeah.
And it becomes more safe with that. And so you're one of those people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I was just so excited that you said yes to doing this. So I appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck with your moving house, as you call it. And hope it goes smoothly. Don't hurt yourself.
I hired movers, please. I'm too posh to move things myself.
That's great. That's great. And we're excited for this new transition in your life.
Yeah, me
So
too.
thank you again, Hannah, and
Thank you, Brad.
more. All right. With
Have a
everyone
lovely day.
talk to us, thank you. You guys are great. Thank you for all the questions. All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye.